welcome to NerdTopia. I'm Jason,
And I'm out.
Artlist.io.
and today we're going to be discussing The Desolation of Smaug, The Hobbit Part 2. Um, so,
Yeah.
you just want to start at the beginning where they're inside the pub or whatever,
Tavern.
tavern, is that what
Go
they
with it.
call it?
I mean, like, I don't know.
Well, that's the flashback where it shows Gandalf and Thorin Oakenshield meeting for the first time, and it's where he gets the map and stuff. It's important to the story, but it it's also where Thorin finds out that he's, got a price on his head, um, which is weird because that's all from Azog, I guess, and he's not in the book. Azog, is not part of the story. It mentions him that, he was at the battle and Thorin cut off his arm and he was presumed to be dead. The other badass orc in the movie, Bolg.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
The one that was actually leading the charge in this one.
that's Azog's son,
Hmm.
and he's the one that's in it. It's not Azog. He's not in the.
Oh, so like
Yeah,
the entire story the movies are telling didn't even happen.
pretty much no. The whole thing where they're being chased by the orcs, at the end of the first one.
Yeah.
That's not in the book. They're being chased by the wolves, and the wolves actually talk and speak to them and stuff. And yeah, I should have covered that in the last one. My bad. um, yeah, but that's another part where they differed. Excuse me, dying. Uh, the I gotta put my vape down. It chokes me. Sorry. But anyway, yes, it Azog's not even in it. It's really Bold or Bulge, however you say his name. It's
Bulge.
BOLG.
Bulge.
It's BOLG.
Motherfucker has a bulge.
Dude had some bulges.
Yeah.
That didn't sound right, did it?
No, it did not.
I mean, he was like really muscular, when him and Orlando Bloom. Okay, wait, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Anyway, okay, so Thorin and Gandalf meet, and um, it's really setting up, what it's showing what happened before the first movie.
But like,
So
is
it's
it
really a
just me,
flashback.
or could that movie not have had that scene and nothing would have changed? You still know everything. All they're
Alex,
doing
just
is
about
showing.
everything that happens in the second movie, with the exception of them going to the dwarves
Okay,
or to the elves, could be left out, and it,
but like at least
yeah,
uh, the shit that happened with the elves was actually entertaining. I mean, I actually kind of enjoyed that scene. It was
yeah.
kind of fun. It showed off Bilbo, not being a useless little bitch.
Okay, well, let's get to that in time. Let's go ahead and give it a rundown.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, but like you said, it's a useless scene, but it shows what happened before the events that took place before the first movie.
Yeah.
It was their first meeting, and he tells him about the map and the key that he got from his father before he completely lost his mind at the hands of the necromancer, who was really Sauron, which you find out in the second movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so and he sets him up with Bilbo and all that, and puts him on the path to where he wanted him. Gandalf is playing puppet master at this point. Okay, well that's what he's done the whole time.
The
But that,
invisible hand, Gandalf the Grey.
well, it's not just that's why he was there. And not only that, he's get the ring he has uh, that you see in the Lord of the Rings. And that talks about in the book. I don't know if you know about that, but Gandalf has one of the rings, that one of the elven rings,
Yeah.
uh, and it's the one that helps you to persuade people. It gives you ability to, you know, get people to do what they were going to do anyway, but like to rally people to, it's to light a fire under people and to get them to do what he wants, basically.
So basically, Gandalf is Mark Marrow with
But
superpowers.
But see, he's entrusted with the ring by Círdan the shipwright, who lives in the Grey Havens. That's the one that made the ship that carries them away at the end of the third movie.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the elf that was over the Grey Havens. That and um, where Elrond lived in Rivendell. That was the last two of the last strongholds left. You know, there was also where Legolas's dad and Galadriel were, but those were the four places where the elves were still in Middle Earth. Anyway, off topic. Okay, but he has a ring, one of the magic rings. So, but you know that helps him to do what his assigned task is, which is to fight evil. And in order to do that, he has to rally all the people of Middle Earth. So basically, he's a puppet master, and he's sending Thorin to do what he wanted to do anyway, which was to retake his kingdom. But so he's helping him on the way. But yeah, Gandalf's the ultimate puppet master. Okay, so anyway, you get on, and then they are.
They meet the Changer after that.
Yeah, that's Bjorn, the skin changer.
Skin changer.
Okay, they're running from the orc pack, and Bilbo actually sees the Bjorn, and he's in the shape of a great bear, and he sees the orcs too, but he's trying to, when he runs back into the group, because they got him as like lookout or scout, and he goes back to tell him what he sees, and he tells him how far the orcs away, and then they're all talking blah blah blah, and he's sitting there trying to get hey, there's something else, and Gandalf already knows. He's like, is it in the shape of a great bear? And Bilbo's like, yes, how'd you know? And he's like, we got to go. And they start running, but they're running towards his house. They're going to his house. When they get in there, of course, Gandalf tells them, that it's they're in the house of Bjorn, and the bear that was chasing them inside was actually their host, and tells them a little bit about himself. And then, of course, the next morning he comes out and they talk. And dude doesn't like dwarves, but he really he hates orcs. He was actually a prisoner of Azog.
Yeah,
and he still got chains on him. Yes, he does. And the orcs were responsible for killing most of his kind. It portrays him as the last. Yes. Well, they say that in the book too. Well, actually, I think I can't say this for fact, but I want to say the book says he's among the last of his kind. The book says, or the movie says
he is the last one.
Yeah, the movie he states he's the last one, but I want to say the book's different, but I can't be 100%
The next movie was the last in their series they were going to make. It was fine.
Yeah. Anyway, from there, they move towards Mirkwood Forest, and that's where Gandalf leaves them. He is looking at they get on the Elven path through Mirkwood, and at the beginning of it, there's Elven ruins and stuff, and Gandalf sees it, and he also has a vision from the Galadriel, the female elf from the first movie series, that the one they call the Elven Witch. But anyway, he knows he must go and flesh out the Necromancer, which isn't a part of the Hobbit. That's a part of the Lord of the Rings. But anyway.
All right. So we're getting up to a point where I want to have a story time here.
Okay.
We're at that point where we're at the forest, right?
Yeah, and it goes two different ways, because I've got things to say on both Gandalf's next scene and
well, Gandalf's next scene is after about what I'm
going to say. Okay, we'll go ahead. We'll go for the Elven Road.
They lead into the forest, and they get lost in the path, and Bilbo smacks that spider web, which alerts the spiders, right?
Yes.
I remember sitting in the movie theater. At this time, I was deathly afraid of spiders. And I remember, I already knew there were going to be spiders in this movie. I don't know why I knew, but I knew.
Yeah, you told me.
And we're sitting there, and I saw him flick the spider web. I'm like, I gotta go. It's like you're like, no, it's fine. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. I don't remember spiders in the book. And I just walked. I straight up just walked out. I was done with your shit. I walked out and you followed me. I remember we
remember
played like so
air hockey.
we played air hockey and we walked back in. And remember you asked Andrew, person who's been on our show a couple of times, like, were there any spiders? Oh yeah, there were tons of them.
And there were too, a lot.
There were close-ups on the mouth and the eyes. You hear them talk. I would have killed you if I would have stayed. I would have been pissed.
That would have been better if you'd let me build up to it and got there.
No, I had to tell that story because I probably would have forgot.
No, you wouldn't have.
Anyway.
You've been waiting to tell that story.
Yeah, I have. 10 years in the making.
Well, since you told that story, we'll go ahead and lead with you told, they go in and they see the spider, the drawers, and then that's where we're introduced to Legolas and Tauriel. They come in and save the dwarves and they capture them. But that's not how it happens in the book. I told you that, they're Legolas and Tauriel's not there. So, in the book, the elves are having I don't know if you remember where Tauriel and Keely's talking.
Yeah,
and she tells them at that point that's where they're trapped in the dungeon, and she tells them, that he says something about the music upstairs, and she tells him, yes, it's a celebration and blah blah blah. Well, in the book, they're having the celebration out in the woods. There's no spiders. And they've got a clearing, and there's tables set up, and they're having a party. They're singing, there's food and everything, and the dwarves have been lost, and they're starving. At this point, and dying of thirst. So they rush into it, and all the lights instantly disappear, and everybody's gone. They start bumbling around and stuff, but everything just is gone. And eventually they just capture them and take them back, and that's where they end up in the dungeons. And Bilbo uses the ring and slips in, and all that falls along. But the escaping from the dungeon, they're like riding in the barrels. And in the book, Bilbo packs them in there with straw and stuff, and then puts the lids on, and then dumps them out. And they float down till they get down to where they run into Bard, but the bargeman.
Yeah.
And Bowman, whatever.
Gaston and Beauty and the Beast.
Sure.
He did. In the live action when he played Gaston.
I wouldn't know. Anyway,
I only know that because I knew him from somewhere. I thought he was the dude from Pirates of the Caribbean, so I had to go and make sure.
Right.
And no, he was not.
Okay, well, let me back up for just a second. In the movie scene where the doors were captured, it's the fight with the spiders and stuff, and Tauriel and Legolas, were smashing spiders left and right, and Tauriel actually saves Keely. It's their first interaction.
Yeah.
Because they have this love story that develops between them, and it's the absolute worst love story ever put on film.
I don't know, man. I did definitely watch the sequel trilogy of Star Wars.
They did a terrible job of setting it up. Anyway, I'll get to it. Okay. Okay, so that's their first meeting. He's like, toss me a dagger or something, and she's like, there's no way I'll give you a dwarf anything or whatever, and she kills the spider, and and then they take them back, and then, like, as I said, Bilbo helps them escape or whatever, but while they're trapped in the dungeon, the conversation I mentioned earlier, that's Tauriel and Keely's first interaction, right? Not their first interaction, but the first time where she sits down and starts talking.
They have a heart-to-heart.
Man, exactly. That's where, if they fell in love, that's where it happened. That was their first real conversation, and There's, sitting there talking and everything. But I mean, it even alludes to it before that because when she locks him in the dungeon, he says to her, "Don't you want to check down my trousers? I could have anything hidden down there." And she looks down at him and says, "Or nothing," and then turns and walks off. And he's sitting there staring after her. And Legolas says to her, "Why does that dwarf look at you that way?" She says, "I don't know, but he's kind of tall for a dwarf, don't you think?" And Legolas says, uh, "Taller than some, but still just as disgusting or whatever, something to that effect." But you could see it in her eyes. She was already smitten. Um, but they have very few interactions until except for that one conversation, and then all of a sudden they're in love, and then they have the scene going down the river, because in the movie they're in the barrels and they're riding down them, and the orcs are chasing them, and Legolas and Tauriel are trying to chase after them too because they found that they've escaped. So they're killing orcs, and Legolas is walking on people's heads, and it's all CGI. And
Very noticeably CGI.
yes, and just all the fight scenes in this are like that. They are mostly CGI, and it's nothing like Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings had epic, awesome battles that in the movie theaters you didn't want to get up for those 3 hour long movies to go pee just because it was so good you didn't want to miss one of them. And The Hobbit, I didn't care about getting up and walking out to chase you out because it wasn't that good.
Yeah. So since we're on bad CGI, I forgot something. When they were at the Skin Changer's house, Bilbo woke up with bees in his face.
Yeah, the bees.
My God, they were so that whole scene was so bad because those bees are horribly CGI and the background was very, very noticeably not there.
Well, you have a version to spiders. I have a version to bees, so I didn't mention them.
Well, okay. I don't know if you're creeped out by bees, but I was creeped out by spiders. Not anymore. I watched that scene back and it was actually kind of fun.
I have been all my life. I don't know how much you know of this, but at 4, I was stung by a ton of them and was hospitalized and came close to dying because they gave me penicillin and found out I was allergic to it. And I was really, really sick.
The bees are a no-go.
I run like a little girl.
That's the only time I've ever seen you run. Was you ran from a bee once. I was just like, Dad, it's touching me.
It's the only time I run anymore, and I still do it.
Like I remember just reaching out and like, Dad, I'm holding it. And you're like running away.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we at? Oh, the love story. But anyway, they go chasing him down. And at that point in the movie, Keely gets shot with a orc arrow and poisoned, and which doesn't happen in the book, obviously, because the orcs aren't chasing them. But anyway, they get on down the river,
and it's never really explained that it's poisoned either. It just
it
guess.
It does. It tells that it's poison. Yeah.
Oh shit!
You remember Legolas and Tauriel capture one of the orcs. They take him back to his dad, to Brendel, and he tells them that they shot the young prince, talking about Thorin's nephew, because Fili and Kili are Thorin's nephews.
Yeah, I knew that. I figured that out the last scene right before they left for the mountain.
He tells them he'll be king.
Yeah,
about Fili.
Because he was trying to go on with him, even though he was obviously hurt. He's like,
that's Keely. But his brother Fili, he tells him, you'll be king one day. You have to be able to make, hard decisions and.
Blah, blah, blah. I'm not sacrificing one of my men because of ego or something like that.
No, he says he's not sacrificing the mission for one man.
Or mission for one.
Even if it's his kin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, when they're interrogating the orc that they capture, he tells them that it's a poison arrow. So it does tell in the movie. But excuse me, sorry. I keep hitting the vape. I put it away.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I can't handle it. Anyway, fast forward. It's they meet Bard the Bargeman, Bard the Bowman, who's the descendant of Gillian, who is blamed for not killing the dragon. Because he was shooting at him with the black arrows, but they were bouncing off of him. That everyone else thought he missed or whatever. But Bard is his descendant, and
His grandson.
yeah, technically, yeah, his grandson.
That's how they described it, was a grandson.
Yeah. Um,
They meet him. They got a boat.
they make a deal for him to sneak them in the city. To sneak all of them in and for weapons, and they pay him, and they go in, and people see them. When they're sneaking in, and there was a song and thing about how when the Dwarfs return, the rivers would flow with gold and it would run down the mountains or whatever, riches, and everything would be good again. And um, so they uh, uh, you want to jump in?
All right, where were we? They're going to the city. They sneak in through the toilet for some reason. I forgot why.
Because the Bard's house is under watch.
I just remember one of them popping up and just like, I want to say she was like 14-year-old girl, was just like, why are there doors coming out of our toilet?
Yeah, and it's actually the son that's standing there, and the first one up, he says, "If you tell anyone about this, I'll kill you," or something like that. And,
Yeah.
And then the girl sees him and, "Pa, why is there doors coming out of our toilet?" Yeah, it's actually a funny scene.
It was something.
Yeah, but anyway, so what it boils down to is the dwarves end up in front of the master of the town, and um, he ends up welcoming them after Thorin makes a speech about how everything will be right after they've returned, and he's saying that he'll be king under the mountain again, and he doesn't bother to tell them that his mission's probably more one of burglary. He's trying to get the Arkenstone.
Yeah.
And you were asking me about it before, but what it comes down to is that the other dwarf kings had sworn allegiance to uh, Thorin's grandfather on the Arkenstone. The dwarves all valued the Arkenstone above everything.
Okay.
And but it's really weird because they make such a big deal out of it. Well, I don't say that for the end. Anyway, but yeah, so the deal is, Thorin has to have the Arkenstone to be king, or for his kingship to be legit, and for the other six dwarf kingdoms to recognize him as the king, and like if say, hey, come help me kill the dragon or whatever, or
He
they
has
need
to have
his.
their. So.
Yeah. He has to have he's supposed to have the Arkenstone.
Okay.
But actually, that's not how it plays out, obviously. But anyway, we'll get to that in the third one.
Yeah.
Okay. So the master of Lake Town decides to welcome him because he can tell which way the people are leaning, and he's worried about his position anyway. That's stupid storylines that they put in the movie to make it 3 hours, and to make 3 movies out of it. It was bad all the way around. Peter Jackson did such a good job with the Lord of the Rings. I was so disappointed how he did this.
I think he kind of got because Sam Raimi did good with the first 2 Spider-Man movies, but the third one was shit. Well, that's because you figure out that the studio was like, well, you need to do this. I think that's what happened with Peter Jackson.
Well, see, the way it worked out is Peter Jackson wasn't supposed to direct these.
Yeah.
He didn't want to try to compete with the Lord of the Rings, so they had Robert Rodriguez come in, and it was supposed to be 2 movies. All right, the first one was supposed to be told through Bilbo's eyes, and then the second one was probably going to be through Gandalf, and it was supposed to go back and show everything that you didn't see in the first one, and from that other perspective. All right, but then for whatever reason he couldn't do it, and Peter Jackson was on the movie as a writer.
Yeah.
And then he ends up having to take it over, and they make 3 movies out of it. And the second one's mostly filler. Like I said, they invented a character, they brought Legolas into it, which was just because he was in Lord of the Rings and popular, so they
And he
brought
was
him
willing
in.
to come back.
That too. Hell, what else was he doing?
Orlando Bloom
Anyway,
is very, very wealthy, but he has not had a lot of acting since.
well, he was in Lord of the Rings, and he was in, the Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, he was in
He was in
Troy, but he played Paris, Hector's brother, and was shit. He was a wimp that would have got killed.
Like at this point, Orlando Bloom doesn't have to do any working. His grandkids
No,
will still be rich.
he does just because of Lord of the Rings, and it was his first acting job, but that made him rich. But anyway, let's move on because I got to go to bed. Yeah, I'm old, and it's late. Okay. Anyway, so the Master of Lake Town basically, accepts them and everything, and agrees to help them and sends them on their way. He's just trying to get rid of them.
Yeah,
but of course, Philly has to stay behind. We already talked about that scene, so we'll move on. All right, so they get up there and they finally figure out how to open the door after
Bilbo found out how to do it.
Bilbo, yeah, that's what I said. Everybody give up.
Motherfucker almost ruined it too.
But yeah,
Thorin
kicked the key
saved
off the mountain. Yeah.
Dude, I know you're not a fan of the actor who played Thorin, but he had such great storytelling with his face.
I didn't say I didn't like him. I thought he did a good job. I just didn't. They made him too pretty. The dwarfs weren't pretty. They all look like, Gimli from the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I remember.
That's what dwarfs are supposed to look like. And I hate the new Amazon one already because I saw what they did with the female dwarfs. But anyway, I'm not even get on that.
Not yet. Until we review it.
It's too late. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so they get inside, and of course Bilbo goes in, and because he's the burglar, and he meets the dragon, and the dragon. The first thing he says, or one of the first things he says, is something about he smells the scent of gold that's different, and he's referring to the ring that Bilbo was carrying.
Yeah,
he knew there was a new piece of treasure. Dragons and treasure, they love it. They can't spend it, but they like to sleep on it, in it, hoard it. That's their thing. But anyway,
because they can dominate their power over the people who want the gold.
Yeah, well, they're wicked, and I love that they're sentient and speak, and they've got this evil in them. He tells Bilbo at one point, he's talking about the Arkenstone because that's where its first appearance is.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, it was in the first one a little bit. It was in the backstory.
Well, it shows. Well, yeah, okay.
It shows the backstory, right. And then where
this is where. This is where our characters run into it this is where Bilbo sees it for the first time.
The only person who, no, I mean, I guess the other doors might have seen it, but the only one I can think of that actually seen it was Thorin.
No, the old door. All of them, but the young ones. His nephews. All of them, but him. No, that's not true. But the old one and the bald-headed one. The taller one.
Yeah.
They were there.
Yeah, so only a couple.
They had obviously had seen it. I'm not sure about Gimli's father glowing. He looks older, but I don't know. I can't remember. But I'm skipping over this. Anyway. So we're on the dragon. Done by Benedict Cumberbatch. Not that I know who it was.
He was.
He did so. Great. Yes. Great. And like I said, the dragon's
he mocapped the dragon. Like, that wasn't exactly CGI. It was motion capture with CGI. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I love the dragon. I'm into dragons anyway, but it was great. And, you can't tell it's Benedict Cumberbatch. It doesn't sound like him. No. The voice and the work they did on it is just fantastic. I mean,
that was some of their better CGI.
The dragon impressed me more than anything.
100%. Favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, it definitely 100%. And then they of course have to kill him, but
beginning of the next movie.
Yeah.
It'll be really sad when that comes.
But yeah, I mean, their whole interaction between them is just awesome, and it's in the book it's great, and in the movie they do a great job with it. I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it. Your brother called me earlier when I was watching the end of it,
Yeah.
or actually, I told you I watched it in three sections,
Yeah.
and I was watching it when he called, and it was just at the part where the dragon wakes up, and I answer the phone like, "You got terrible timing," and he starts laughing. Says, "Oh yeah, why?" Because that's the good part.
How about the good part?
Yeah, but so I had to postpone that for like 45 minutes while I spoke to him. But anyway, so you see Bilbo seeing the Arkenstone for the first time, and him and the whole interaction with with Smog, and him telling him that he's almost tempted to let him take Thorin the Arkenstone just to watch it destroy him, and the seeds of doubt and stuff that he plants in Bilbo's mind. That was one of the things about dragons. They were very, very cunning, and
He didn't need that ring to be a Gandalf. He's better than Gandalf with the ring.
but the you know treasure has a strange effect on doors, especially gold and jewel, precious things to them. And
Yeah.
Thorin obviously loses it, and it starts in this movie.
Yeah.
When Bilbo is running away from the dragon and trying to get out, he runs into Thorin, and Thorin pulls a sword on him. Did you find the Arkenstone? And Bilbo did. He's got it hid, and he decides wisely not to give it to him.
That was a good idea.
It is. It was. It works out for the whole thing. But so um, they have the whole chase, and everything which didn't happen in the book. Where they run through there and get him to heat up the forge, and
Yeah.
that whole action sequence. Yeah, now that's in there. He says something about he knew that secret passageway was there and should have closed it a long time ago, and he smashes it and nearly traps them. They just barely get out, but in the movie they have that whole scene, and then it leads them to the grand chamber, and where they've got all that gold, and it mesmerizes Smog when he sees it, and he's sitting there looking at it, and it covers him, and then of course he bursts out of it without hurting him because he's fireproof, let alone gold. It's not hot. Even liquid gold's not hot enough to harm him.
Yeah.
He goes flying off in the air and just shake. It comes flying off of him, which looks kind of cool. It makes for a nice scene, but not part of the movie.
Not part of the movie?
I mean, not part of the book.
There you go.
Definitely part of the movie. But
I remember that in the movie.
Yeah. Like I said, very nice scene. I enjoyed all of it. But
that was a scene that they added that you liked.
It is. Very much. Like I said, I like the character of Tauriel, and I like Legolas and it somewhat, but like where they're going down the river, he's walking on the heads of dwarfs and fighting and the whole time, and I mean it's just stupid and CGI to hell and back. But where he fights Bolg in the city, that's a great fight scene.
Oh yeah,
Bolg's got the other orcs with him, and when Legolas draws a sword and starts to walk at him, orcs attack him from either side from the alley that you couldn't see, and he kills both of them fuckers. And then he goes at Bolg, and he Bulge grabs the sword, kneels down with it, and then pulls him closer, and then they go at it. And, it's a good fight scene. I liked it, and at the end of it, he left Legolas bleeding. We've never seen Legolas bleed. We've seen him in 9 hours worth of movies of the Lord of the Rings killing 9 million orcs and elephants the size of buildings and everything else. Nobody ever made that fucker bleed, but Bolg did.
Is amazing storytelling. It's telling you how powerful this fucker
is. It was, but I thought they did a discredit with it at the end. But we'll get to that in the next movie.
Yeah.
This one, that fight scene, I enjoyed. It set Bolg up as being a fucking badass. It showed how tough he was,
Hmm.
and it showed that Legolas, wasn't invulnerable.
Just
That
takes
you
a
could
fucking
hurt him,
punch.
that you can kill him. He's just a badass, and I like that aspect of it. But overall, I think the movie's fucking weak.
Yeah.
We've been grading these things, and this one D minus. It
D
blows.
minus.
It
I was gonna give it
blows.
a D or a or a C minus because I,
I started to say
not
C, and that's
horrible.
probably where it is. Just for some
It's
of the
about
better
me.
things, like I
Yeah.
described,
I love
it's probably
Smog.
a C. But yes, yeah, okay,
Like
yeah,
that's
you're
what brings it up
right.
to a C is I
It's a
love
C. Yeah,
Smog, and he's not really in the next one. Benedict Cumberbatch isn't, at least.
right.
Like he doesn't have any words in it. He gets fucking shot in like the first 10 minutes. There's
Yeah,
nothing to it. But he's in
he
this.
fucks up the
It
town and
is
gets
his movie.
killed. Yeah, this is where he's at and his big scenes and everything. And you're right. It's probably a C,
It's
but
about a C. It's mid,
I,
but
yeah, the movie just hurt me because I've read this book as a kid for the first time, and I've read it dozens of a dozen times at least, and it just the they changed so much of it that it just my first thought. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of certain everything, because I was like, there's some things in here, and there was fight scenes and
there's a couple that are.
everything, but mostly the dragon.
Dragon's really
Yeah,
just it.
it's mostly the dragon.
Really just
The
it.
dragon's worth a C.
Dragon's
But
worth a C. All
yeah,
right,
I
I can
mean,
get that.
the rest of it's a money grab from the studios,
Oh,
to make
but
3 fucking movies that they didn't
and
need.
the whole reason I think it's a C is just because, like, it should be a fun movie that like means nothing in the story for real, kind of like a Prisoner of Azkaban. Prisoner of Azkaban, take it out. There's nothing like all you miss is Sirius Black. You can introduce him in another movie. Prisoner of Azkaban has no threading except for that you lose Scabbers and gain Sirius Black. Well,
Yeah,
this movie had you meet Smog and get to see how he's bad at. It should be good, but it's just
it's
not.
not. It's all filler. It really is. It's just all filler. Like I said, the characters aren't even in the book. Um,
So just
uh,
imagine if Alfonso Riviera got the direction, how good that would have been. You saw what he did with Prisoner of Azkaban. Prisoner of
it
Azkaban was
wouldn't.
fucking awesome.
It wouldn't even been any better with the script, because it's they it was a money grab from the studios, in my opinion. They tried to make 3 movies out of it, and like they did the Lord of the Rings, and they shouldn't have done that. It's
They really
not the
could have.
Lord of the Rings.
They could have
Look,
made two
look.
with the scripts they had.
Let me put it to you the best way I can. Okay, each one of the Lord of the Rings books, all 3 of them are over 300 pages.
I think you did this
Okay,
last episode.
and they are 3 hours apiece. The
Yes, they
Hobbit
did
is
this last
less than
episode.
300 pages, even in a large print book, and they made 3 3-hour movies out of it. The studio was just making more movies, and they put a lot of filler, and that's what this movie is.
And if you do this
Other
next
than
episode, I swear to God.
oh, I'm going to complain about it next episode too, even
You
more.
already went through that entire speech last episode. I don't want to hear it a third time.
Okay, I won't give the speech next time. I'll just complain about it.
But you know that they could have took the exact same scripts, split this movie in half, and split it to the other two, and they still could have had 2 movies. It would have been the same. You just take out little bits that didn't matter. It would have been
Two movies would have been okay. They just needed to knock out all the filler that wasn't
just because
necessary.
they had some filler that actually made the movies better.
Well, see, the whole scene with them going down the river,
I liked it.
everything.
They would've fixed it.
It was it. If they had made it like the book, it wasn't interesting visually. Okay, the story, and it moves along real fast in the book. It's not like it's a major part of the book. It's just there. It takes them longer to get in the barrels and get out of it. And by the time they get out of it, they're all fucked up because they got beat to death inside those barrels
So,
and half drowned.
but they could have
They're
fixed that
not
scene
thinking.
if they would have, did what I said, cut this movie in half and give it to the other two. And they should have had a little bit more of a budget for that scene. That scene would have looked a lot better because I think the movie version it went along really nicely. And if it would have had some better CGI to it and the fight scenes would have been a little better choreographed, I think it would have been probably one of the best scenes besides Smaug. In my opinion.
They could have done it much better. But the CGI was terrible. We've already discussed that.
CGI of the movie was not.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
All right. So
overall, but what were you gonna say? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so basically agree. This is just a mid movie. It's not horrible. It's not something I'm probably gonna watch again. I might watch the Smaug scene. That's about it.
Right, I'm with you on it. I just, it's not that great. So it is what it is. But it does set up the third movie, and the third movie has some good parts to it. We'll discuss in the final episode of season 1 of NerdTopia. Which is a few weeks away, but we'll be discussing the part 3, the Battle of the Five Armies.
All right. So you want to reveal what we're doing next week?
Next week, well, you go ahead. I'll let you tell them.
I'd rather you do it.
Honest to God, I'm not sure. It's Rick and Morty, right?
Okay. So I know we had a couple plans.
Okay. So next week is going to be Rick and Morty, apparently.
Is now. Right in stone.
No, next week is going to be Rick and Morty. In anticipation of that, after I finish the Desolation of Smaug, I started rewatching Rick and Morty, which I just watched season 5 last week.
I've been watching.
I started over on season 1 today, and I watched like 6 or 7 episodes.
1, 2, and 3 way too well. Season 4 I got a good bit of. Season 5,
first 4 I watched a lot at your brother's house when he and I were living together, and before that, when I come up and hang out on the weekends and shit. I watched a lot of it. So
I did too.
I saw a good bit. Okay, anyway. So overall, like you said, mid movie, not that great, but it does set up, the final movie, which we will be discussing in a few weeks when we do the Battle of the Five Armies.
Which will be our last episode of season 1. We'll take a little break.
And then we'll come back with season 2.
And I'll have a better intro, because ours is fine, but, be better. Give me some time to make it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all for now. And do we want to plug anyone?
You can follow me on Twitter at NerdCulture2. That's where I'll be. I'll post about the podcast every week if you want to stay tuned. We post our podcast every Wednesday, except for last time when I forgot to edit it and it came out Thursday. Other than that, if you want to stay up to date with us, NerdCulture2. Do you have anything people need to follow you on?
I'm Fred, and you can follow me on NerdTopia. That's
it. God, we're not really going to stick with this Fred thing, are we?
You got a better name?
Robert.
No.
Bob.
Hell no.
Bobby.
I'll kill you.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Already taken.
Follow me at Billy Bob Thornton Jr.
Good night, NerdTopia.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all next week.
Hey, I'm rolling clean off a bean in the drop. Voices in my head, they telling me to stop. Hey, got 20 G's for the keys to the... What do you do when Captain turn your lover to a op? Hey, I'm rolling clean off a bean in the drop. Voices in my head, they telling me to stop.